Hi everyone, it's Miss Naima again. So welcome back to another video for your class key text about your chapter book from The Secret Diary of Jane Penny. So let's read together. So we are on page 24. Mrs. McNamara was wearing a black dress and had a big bunch of keys on her belt. She had her hair in a bun and has one of them faces that tells you that she smiles a lot. She was sitting at a small desk when I went in, but stood up and walked around it to greet me. "Good afternoon, Jane," she says, her accent in Scots. "Good afternoon, Mrs. McNamara," I says, keeping my eyes down and doing a little curtsy. She looked me up and down and obviously didn't seem too displeased with what she saw. "You're a presentable little thing, aren't you?" she says. "I try to be, Mrs. McNamara," I says, and then I blurted out, "And I may be little, but I'm strong." "I don't doubt it," she says. "What with all the work you do for Mrs. Berry. She has given you a most excellent character." Now, there's a number 23 there, so let's see what that means. A character was a term used for a written character reference from an employer, hopefully saying good things. Without such a reference, it would be hard to get work. She nodded over to a letter on her desk. "Most excellent? Good old Mrs. Berry. I like being most excellent. It makes me sound, uh, most excellent." "Do you know what I look for in a maid, Jane?" asks Mrs. McNamara. "Dirt under the fingernails?" I asks. The housekeeper smiled. "See? I knew she was a smiler. I mean, do you know what qualities I look for in a maid?" she explained. My cheeks reddened. "A good Christian and a good worker?" I says. She smiled again. "Close," she says. "I require a girl with high moral standards, complete honesty, cleanliness, good capability, good temper, and good health." So there are two numbers here, so 24 and 25. Sorry, 24. Strong Christian values were seen as all important in Victorian Britain, in which the church played an important part in everyday life. And 25. These were standard requirements to work as a maid in the Victorian houses. That's a lot of goods, I thought, but I knew not to say nothing. "I can see that you're clean, and Mrs. Berry makes it very clear that you're more than capable, and she says that you have only had one day off sick in 2 years. Do you have high moral standards?" I says, "Me prays at night, go to church on Sundays, and don't mix with boys, Mrs. McNamara," I says, which is true. "What about your temper?" "Mrs. Berry's never had cause to complain," I says. "I once dropped a coal scuttle on me foot and didn't swear, not get angry neither." This is almost true. I didn't swear out loud, but inside me head, that's another matter. I found myself thinking words I didn't even know that I knew. We talked some more, and finally she says, "I think you would fit in well here at Lytton House, Jane. Thank you for coming all the way here today. Mrs. Kirbytrot likes me to meet all prospective employees beforehand, and I had no reason to be in town." I've no idea what prospective employees are, but I do know that Lytton House is the country residence of one Mr. and Mrs. Kirbytrot. Mary, my friend, what works there and recommended me for the job, says that they call it their country residence, because they have a house in London too, which they calls the London House, and not the London residence for some reason. It can all get so confusing. She says Mrs. Kirbytrot's first name is Claire, but she's no idea what Mr. Kirbytrot's first name is. They have a little boy called Master William, who at present is looked after by a nanny called Nanny Brown. When he's older, he'll have a governess or a tutor or something. Mrs. McNamara was still smiling when she said, "If you go to the kitchen, one of the girls will give you a cup of tea before you leave here. I will make the final decision in consultation with Mr. Pritchard, and you should hear from us within the next few days." I did another curtsy. "Thank you, Mrs. McNamara," I says. "And how shall I hear?" "I shall write to your mistress," she says. "Thank you," I says. I knew Mr. Pritchard was the butler. He's kind of overall in charge downstairs. 'cause Mary had told me, but I'd have guessed that anyway. There's a number 26 there. Let's have a look what that means. So life in a big house was divided between upstairs and downstairs. Upstairs was where the family lived, but only the more important servants had regular contact with them. The lowest of the low servants would never go upstairs, except up the back stairs to the beds in the attic. Though upstairs may be beautiful and decorated and comfortable, the low stairs was always much more basic and functional. In a big house, people really were expected to know their place. Sure enough, I got my tea and a bun that was right tasty. And I do like a good bun. There were 3 rows of bells lined up along the wall with labels underneath them. While I was there, one of the bells started jangling, and Mary said that'd be the mistress ringing for her tea. There's a bell pull in each room that rings a different bell down here, she says. The label tells you which room the bell belongs to. Mary saw the look of panic in my eyes. There were so many bells, and I'd never learned to read all them labels. Don't worry, Jane, she says. Your job don't have you answering no bells. And she smiled. I gave her a hug. She smelled of polish. I walked all the way home because it was cheaper than the omnibus. I walked because I didn't have an interview to worry about being late for. I walked because it didn't matter if my dress got dirty this way round. And as I walked, I imagined working in the big house. I'm home now, and so want that job and to work in that beautiful house. I'll mention it in my praise tonight. Okay, that was the reading done for today. Your class key text. Get a pencil and paper ready to jot down your comprehension questions. So try your best to answer these questions. Number 1 is, what was one of the values Mrs. McNamara was looking for? You'll find your answer to this question on page 26. And question number 2 is, who did Lytton House belong to? And you will find your answer to this question on page 28. You can pause the video right here to jot down your questions. And you can also rewind the video to look back on the pages that we've just read together to look for your answers on the relevant pages. Please remember to put your answers on Tapestry so I can have a look of how well you've listened to your class key text. Thank you very much for listening today. I hope you enjoyed that. Bye.